So, as you may have seen, Taylor Swift recently released her album called Life of a Showgirl, which she says is all about this place she's in her life right now where she's very happy and joyous and things are going well. So, I saw a clip of her in an interview where she was saying how she used to fear that if she ever found happiness and contentment, that she would lose her artistic inspiration. That so much of art is derived from suffering, which it really is. But I wanted to talk about that concept of, do we need deep sadness and struggle and suffering to be artists? I actually wrote a poem about this long before the album came out or anything, probably about a year and a half ago, called Must All Poets Be Tortured? And it was in response to the title of her last album, but it was around the same concept. I was like, if I'm present and at peace, for what shall I write? What purpose has poetry if I haven't a plight to pillage with words as my weapons against grueling grief and wretched rage? I can share the poem at the end of this video, but the whole concept was around, like, do I have to suffer? Because very often when I'm happy and I'm in a good mood, my writing doesn't flow as freely. So I just wanted to talk about that and kind of dissect it and offer some notes of things that have helped me still create even from a positive space if you are a creative who's afraid of finding peace and fulfillment in your life because you're afraid of losing your creativity or losing your gift. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, share this video if you feel inclined to do so. And I also have a free downloadable poetic pep talk that will help get you energized, get you feeling inspired for the day. It's less than 10 minutes and you can download that for free in the video description. I also work as a speech and confidence coach, and if you're looking for help with your confidence in life in general and you want to show up as your authentic self, then I encourage you to check out my online course called Show Up Sure: Secrets to Embody Confidence for a Lifetime, and the link for that is also in the description. So the debate is, will we lose our artistry and our creativity if we don't have problems anymore? Like, if we're at peace truly, would we even create art anymore? And I think it's a yes and situation. So yes, we can still create art no matter what state we're in. And part of the human experience is to have pain and suffering. So I don't think that's ever going to fully go away. So I don't think we need to be afraid of, if I get to a place in my life where I'm overall happy and satisfied, will I have no inspiration left? Because no matter how happy and satisfied we are, we're still humans and we're still going to have bad days and we're still going to have challenging moments that try us and pull us in different directions and cause us to think and reflect. But I remember distinctly the day that I wrote this poem called Must All Poets Be Tortured. I was just in the best mood. I was sitting on my porch eating lunch and just thinking, like, wow, I'm just so happy. I want to write today. I have plenty of time, but I don't know what to write about because I'm so happy. And here's the thing. When I finish a meditation, sometimes I'm like flowing with words, and then other times I'm just so calm that the thought of writing feels so far away because I'm like, my brain is quiet, which doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does when my brain is quiet and I think, oh, this is contentment. And then it's like, wait, but my gift is writing. What if I can't do that anymore because I've turned off all my thoughts? And so it is a challenge and something that I think we can welcome, though, because those moments of peace where my thoughts are turned off definitely don't last forever. And I know my brain is always going to go back to the thinking and the analyzing. And maybe in a way, the thinking and the analyzing is keeping me at a lower level of consciousness than I want to be. But what I've found is that even when I'm in that state of total relaxation, total calm, and it feels like there are no words, if I wait long enough, the words will just flow through me. And that's a really cool experience. So when I read the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, I had a similar experience where I was like, I'm so present that I have no words. Uh-oh, words are my thing. I like words. And so it felt calming, it felt nice, and it also, in a way, felt kind of empty. But then the words started flowing through me more naturally as opposed to coming from my egoic mind. It was more like I was channeling almost. And it's really cool when I have those days where I meditate or something and then the words just flow through me. So just know we can create even when we're not in this reactive, emotionally charged state of trying to get through some suffering or anger or some other negative emotion. And I've written a lot of poems about that. So in my book that I published in May, it's available on Amazon. You can check it out in the video description. But I have several poems about this. One is I Thought a Thought, and then others that just grapple with the thoughts versus words and presence versus poetry. And I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I do think it is a conflict that a lot of artists and creatives experience. Sometimes I'm jealous of like painters and visual artists because I'm like, they don't really need to think. They can just flow and let it go. Versus if your medium is writing and it's words, we have to have thoughts to create words. So Taylor Swift's fear of, well, what if I'm happy and I have nothing sad to write about? Like, what will be my muse? What will be my inspiration? Is not invalid completely. And it is totally 100% possible to be in a really joyous, fun, happy state and create art. And a lot of my poems come from a place of joy and a place of inspiration, and I have so much fun writing those poems. Some of them do not come from such a happy place. Like yesterday, for example, I was having an emotional day and I was feeling triggered, and all of a sudden I just had this urge to just write it out and write this dark, angry, sad poetry. But for me personally, I actually don't share many of those sadder poems because I don't want to make my audience feel sad. And because I memorize most of my poetry and perform it, I don't want to keep repeating those feelings of negativity out loud. I don't want that to be memorized and imprinted in my brain. So I actually, yes, I do create poetry from that state, but they're not my favorite poems. My favorite poems are the ones that feel good and feel fun and feel inspiring. And yes, they touch on sad, negative things, and they usually start when I'm in a place of rumination or a place of being triggered. And then I'm able to transmute it and transform it into something fun and positive and uplifting, which is not how everyone creates. And so if you're the type of person who, when you're really, really down, it flows through you and then you create something beautiful, amazing. And if you want to share the sad songs, amazing. Sometimes that's exactly what we need in the moment. I don't listen to sad songs actively a lot because I don't want that negative energy in my psyche all the time, but sometimes that's exactly what we need to hear to help us process our own emotions. So this is not to say that art created from a joyous place is better than art created from a negative space. A lot of times art is created from a negative space or it's inspired by something negative, but the whole beauty of it is it then transforms that negative experience into something beautiful, into something that we then call art. And it's okay to appreciate the beauty in something sad or in something angry or in something that would make us grieve. That is okay to appreciate that, and that's what makes it so beautiful. And it's not necessary to have those darker emotions in order to create art. We can have all of it. And that, again, is the beauty of art, is the range of human emotion and the range of emotional expression that we get to see and feel and experience. I wrote another poem about this called Creative Conundrum. in which I talk about this conflict between writing and creating from a negative space, but then not wanting to impose that negativity on my listeners or my readers. And that is mostly because I firmly believe that we become what we consume. And when I consume more negative content, I feel worse. When I consume very positive, uplifting content, I feel better. And so when I think about what I want to put out in the world, I want to put out things that are going to make people feel good and make people feel inspired. Not 100% of my poetry does that, but most of it does. And most of even my darker pieces tend to have a happy ending. And if I'm sharing something that's darker, I usually give a disclaimer like, hey, this is not the happiest piece, because I don't want people to listen to something like that on repeat and then get stuck in a negative state. And that's up to each artist, what they're putting out. There is, I think, a certain level of responsibility that we all have in what we contribute to the world. And it's not wrong or bad if you just want to contribute something based on how you're feeling. Other people get to choose how to interpret it. So it's not a musician's fault if all of their songs are really sad. Adele, for example, is known for a lot of really sad songs. It's not to say she's responsible for everyone's feelings, so she shouldn't put out those sad songs. She absolutely should put out what's on her heart and what she's experiencing. I don't have to listen to it, even if I think it's beautiful, even if I think it's catchy. I will save it for the days when I really need a sad song, but probably not listen to it on repeat for the sake of my own mental health and well-being. And everyone's different. Some people love that stuff. Some people need that. I can't watch scary movies because I'll have nightmares. I can't listen to true crime because I'll have nightmares. So I'm particularly sensitive to what I put in my system, but I think everyone to a degree is affected by that as well. And the other point I want to make, especially if you are a creative or a person who fears that if you don't have anything bad happening in your life, you won't have anything to say, is remember the power of imagination. I once wrote a poem about domestic violence that I haven't experienced, but it was inspired by another poet who shared this whole long story of her domestic abuse that she was experiencing. And the next day I was so inspired by her story that I wrote a poem about it from the first person as purely fiction from my standpoint. And it had a happy ending, but the majority of the poem was not a happy experience. So remember, even if you're not going through anything personally that's a struggle, you can find inspiration anywhere you go, and you can find inspiration from other people's stories. Since we've been talking about Taylor Swift a lot, she said that her albums Folklore and Evermore, which are often credited with having the best lyricism of any of her albums, those ones are often credited with being the best written. She said those ones were not narrative about her life. Those were fictional. She created characters that fit into those stories. And so a lot of that sadness and drama that's experienced in those songs was not even her own. So we as artists don't need to fear not having negative experiences in our lives to fuel our passion and to fuel our creativity, because we can get inspired by anything and we can use our imagination. Make up a story about some crazy thing that happened or some traumatic thing that happened, if that's what you want the story to be around. Yes, it's helpful when we have personal inspiration and we can relate to it. But another really cool thing is we can take the tiniest little conflict or trigger and turn it into a whole story. I've definitely done that before with more narrative pieces where I had like a tiny little trigger and I was like, oh, I feel annoyed. And then I made it this whole long poem where if someone just heard the poem, they would think I went through something really tragic. And it's like, no, I didn't. I just embellished it a lot because that's what artists do. And we have permission to do that. Not everything we create has to be a personal narrative. And so all of this is to say, no, all poets must not be tortured. You can be. We all have a side of us that will always be a little tortured, I think. I think that's part of the human experience. And I think you can be an enlightened being and find presence and peace and still create art. That's what I think. So if you would like to hear the poem Must All Poets Be Tortured, I was going to do it on this video, but I don't have it memorized anymore. So I'm going to link the video here. You can watch it there and let me know what you think. Do you think we need to have negative experiences to inspire us? Do you think we can create from a place of joy and have it be just as good as when it's from a negative space? And do you think we should share when we're creating something from a quote unquote negative space? I hope you got something from this. I hope it made you think, and I hope you enjoy the poem. Thank you so much for watching.